Have you ever tried to make a movie before? I'm sure at least somebody out there has. I mean, I can't be the only one who spent a good chunk of my childhood making silly little videos. But see, here's the thing. What happens when you graduate from being a bored kid killing time by filming poor excuses for stories on a crummy old tablet with your big brother, to actually trying to put together a quasi-legitimate indie film production with, you know, an actual screenplay, film set, special effects, and actors? What you get is a headache, constant stress, sleep deprivation, unhealthy obsessions, mental breakdowns, lots and lots of mental breakdowns. You hyperfixate, lose track of your priorities in daily life, get overcome with nerves, fail to prepare properly despite constantly thinking about the project non-stop for 9 months straight, rush into production, waste a bunch of seriously talented people's time, beat yourself up about it for a week, delay the release, delay it again and again and... Okay, where am I going with this? So, let's take a step back. First, I'd like to thank you for stopping by, whether you're a friend or family member of mine checking in on the project I've been talking about non-stop for upwards of a year, an actual member of this film's production here to keep up to date on the nonsense, or someone who just stumbled upon this video in the recommendations and has no idea what the hell's going on. Yeah, hi, I see you. I'm glad this video caught your attention. So, let's get back to the topic at hand. What is the point of this anyway? Well, quite a few things. For one, I'd like to offer an update on the current stage of production for the uninitiated. Beyond that, I also just want to talk about the history of this project and how it got to where it is today, that of course being nowhere. And finally, I wanted to touch on the nature of the Spookening's release. If you've been following production since the beginning, perhaps you remember that I initially promised a release in the fall of 2024. Pretty sure I missed that window. Then I said it would be out around Christmas, that also fell through. Finally, after my team's fairly recent botched attempt at filming, I pushed it all the way to spring 2025, a full year after pre-production began. Here's the thing. I don't think that's gonna happen either. Now, I had no intention of misleading the 30 or so people that had slight interest in this project. I just got ahead of myself along the way, and I apologize for that. I was just way too excited for production, so much so that I made promises I obviously couldn't keep. Keep in mind, I set the first release date before I had even secured the main cast of the film. Yeah. So, with the benefit of a renewed mindset and more grounded headspace, I'm gonna give you the most blunt update possible, the one I should have given you from the beginning. I have no idea when this thing is gonna get done. It could be this summer, it could be 5 years from now. Which I hope isn't the case, but you never know. The point is, I'm tired of setting parameters for myself that just don't work. You can't rush art. And you can't rush this garbage either. So I'm doing away with any concrete release date, at least until principal photography is done. Sorry to keep you in suspense, but I'm more sorry that I've let you down so many times in the past. It's hit the breaking point and I'm done with it. So now you can expect to see the Spookening whenever I'm done with it. But this doesn't mean I have to But this doesn't mean I have to start from scratch or anything. I've been collecting all the necessary props for months in advance, and I had even figured out a filming location. And luckily, I happen to be working with the coolest and most chill cast of actors I could hope for. If there's any other indie filmmakers out there, let me just tell you, my cast can beat up your cast. I am gonna have to upscale here, because one problem I've had is that I've sort of estimated how much of this project I've done all by myself. I'm someone who, when I have an idea, I can envision exactly what I want the project to be, and I think that's overall a good thing, but there's also a downside. It means I get so concerned with preserving my vision that I become unwilling to let other people take the reins, even when they could probably do better than me. So not only had I written the screenplay, not only was I directing, but I was also acting in a major role, so why the hell did I think it was a good idea to take over for cinematography too? My system for things in filming was that I would give overly specific instructions for every single shot when I was in frame, and I just had my dumbass friend who had no experience in operating a camera act as the tripod. This did not work for anyone, so I'm gonna take a step back. I've come to realize that I can't do everything myself, and that's okay. Because even if it doesn't align exactly with my initial vision, the work of an actual cameraman would almost certainly be better than what I'm capable of myself. Having a vision is one thing, bringing it to fruition is something else entirely, and I can't do it alone. So yeah, that's the production update. I know things have been really rough for production, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We just need more time. Alright, that's the important stuff out of the way. Feel free to leave now if you want, but I'd like to keep talking, thank you very much. So, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the original spark of inspiration that eventually led to what is now the Spookening. The general idea that eventually led to what is now the Spookening came to be in the early spring of 2024. Now, I've written screenplays before, and I've always wanted to make movies, but I never really had a real spark of inspiration to actually put a film production together in the short term, at least not at the ripe young age of 15. But I actually first got the idea for a small, low-budget indie film while nearing the end of a drama production. I thought, hey, the most important part of any movie is the cast, and there's this whole slew of talented performers here that may be interested in putting together a production of our own. And so I got to work trying to come up with a fun, relatively short, and most importantly simple idea for a film. It did not take long for me to decide that I wanted to do something horror related. As a huge horror fan myself, it was an easy call. If I was going to make my directorial debut, it was going to be spooky. The title of the project came about very early into production. I want to say it had been there since the very beginning, but I can't say for certain. Whatever the case, I knew I had a winner on my hands with the elegant title, The Spookening. But though the title had been there so early on, the original idea was completely different. The original script wasn't a haunted house story, but rather a Scream-esque murder mystery. It always had comedic elements, but what I had written for the original script was much more cynical and mean-spirited in its humor, pretty far removed from the silly, over-the-top referential humor that I went with for the final draft. The main characters in the final script are sort of carryovers from the original, although they were characterized very differently. I had Mark, who was something of a douchey jock archetype, Jackie, Mark's girlfriend, who was far more sensible and would have served as the final girl if I had finished the script, Liam, the stupid stoner friend, Lisa, who actually is nowhere to be seen in any capacity in the final draft and was just a useless meat sack to serve as the first kill, and finally, Jacob. For any of my cast and crew members out there, you know who he is now, right? Of course you know him. He's me. Yeah, Jacob is my character in the Spookening, and he's pretty much a nervous wreck throughout the whole thing. He's pretty much Shaggy, but minus the eating disorder. Anyway, in this original murder mystery take on the Spookening, Jacob would have actually been the twist villain. That's right, he was the killer, a nerd acting in revenge for being bullied by the popular crowd. I think it was honestly a pretty fun bait and switch, where Mark would progressively act more and more aggressive, leading Jackie to think that he had been the killer, only for Jacob to swoop in, take out Mark, and reveal himself to Jackie, not like that. So yes, it was very derivative of Scream. My idea for his villain speech at the end evoked so much Stu Macher energy that you really could believe Jacob was Shaggy all along. Unfortunately, I realized that not only could I not afford to hire Matthew Lillard, but also that he probably could not pass as a high school student anyway. Really, the only reason I scrapped this original version of the Spookening was because, well, it just wasn't that good. The characters felt way too one-dimensional, there wasn't enough setup and payoff to justify a mystery story, and I don't think I could have stretched the idea out to a substantial length without unnecessary padding. So I ditched the original idea. Who knows, maybe one day I'll find a way to make a project like that work, but I can't promise anything. With my script all but finished, I contacted a few of my theater colleagues to gauge their interest. I got 2 yeses, 1 no, and 1 ghosting. I took a hint. Later on, I just asked some friends to take over, and they agreed. I actually had some dirt on them, so they had no choice lest I expose their dark truths. And so, I and my newly formed cast set out on our mission, and accomplished nothing. In December, we spent 1 weekend trying to film and gave up. But thankfully, I'm lucky enough to have a cast with lives as uneventful as mine for the most part. So after a bit of time to actually get our shit together, we'll be back at it again, hopefully for the last time. So that's the 411 on the Spookening's production. I hope you'll all stay tuned for when this thing finally gets done. Even you, guy who stumbled upon this video in the recommendations and still doesn't know what's going on. This is your friendly neighborhood geek, signing off.
Well, alright then. Piss off now.